My name is Mariana, and I've never been one to believe in supernatural things. But something happened when I was 22 that still haunts me to this day. At the time, I used to go hiking a lot. I loved being in contact with nature. So when a group of friends invited me to camp in a secluded forest, I accepted without hesitation. The plan was simple: 2 days away from civilization, just us, the trees, and the starry sky. We got there at dusk, set up our tents, and lit a fire. We were in the middle of the forest with no cell phone signal, just the sound of crickets and the wind rustling the leaves. Night fell, and one of my friends suggested telling scary stories. We laughed, telling legends about spirits and creatures that haunted that kind of place. But around midnight, we started hearing something strange. It was a call. Low, distant, almost human. It seemed to come from deep within the forest. A drawn-out murmur, as if someone was calling for help. My blood ran cold. One of my friends laughed and said it was just an animal. But as the sound repeated, it became clear that it wasn't. It sounded like crying. We were silent, trying to identify where it was coming from. But when we shined our flashlights into the forest, there was nothing. Nothing but twisted trees and darkness. Still, that call continued, getting closer and closer. That was when we noticed something even more frightening. The forest was completely silent. No sound of insects or birds. Just that repetitive, hypnotic whine. Suddenly, one of my friends pointed to a spot between the trees. We shined our flashlights on it and saw something that should never have been there. It was a woman. But something was wrong. Her body seemed elongated, her arms longer than normal. Her face, I can't describe it. I can only say that it wasn't human. She looked at us. Or rather, we thought she was looking at us because her eyes were just black holes. We ran away, without looking back. We ran to where our cars were parked and fled without taking down our tents. The next day we returned to the place with some locals. But our tents were gone. Nor was there any sign that anyone had been there. Ever since then, I have dreamed of that woman. In the dream she calls me by name. And I fear the day I will answer. It was a rainy night when Renato received an unexpected phone call. On the other end of the line, a weak, trembling voice said his name. He knew right away. It was his Aunt Helena, the only living relative left. Renato, you need to come here. The house, it's alive. Renato's heart raced. He hadn't set foot in the house in almost 20 years, ever since his mother passed away. His memories were hazy, but one thing was certain. No one in the family left without carrying a shadow with them. When he arrived at the old house, a shiver ran down his spine. The mansion on the hill looked exactly as it did in his memories. Tall, imposing, with broken windows and a garden swallowed by weeds. The wind made the dry branches scratch the walls as he tried to get in. He knocked on the door. No answer. He pushed it slowly and the creaking of the hinges echoed like a muffled scream. The darkness of the hallway swallowed the light from the car's headlights, and a musty smell mixed with something that could invade his nostrils. Aunt Helena? His voice came out low, hesitant. Nothing. Just the oppressive silence. He went up the stairs. At the top, he saw the door to her room ajar, the dim light of the lamp flickering. On the floor, a crumpled note. They come at night. Don't look in the mirrors. Renato felt a shiver. But the worst was yet to come. That night, sleep didn't come. Every creak of the wood, every breath of the wind amplified the feeling that something was watching. Around 3 in the morning, a sound woke him up. Footsteps. Not his own. He called out and saw a shadow pass through the crack in the door. Aunt Helena? Silence. Gathering up his courage, he grabbed his cell phone and used a flashlight to illuminate the hallway. The beam of light found an old mirror on the wall. For a moment, everything seemed normal, until the shadow inside the mirror winked at him. Renato's heart stopped. He turned around, there was nothing there. But, inside the reflection, something moved. Desperate, he ran to his aunt's room. He found the bed empty, the sheets thrown on the floor. But in the mirror, her image was there, looking straight at him. Renato, they took me. Helena's mouth moved, but her voice seemed to come from inside his mind. Oh, terror, it paralyzed him. He tried to touch the mirror, but he felt something pulling him in. Struggling, he stepped back and dropped the mirror on the floor. The glass shattered and a scream echoed through the house, making the windows shake. That was when he realized. The house had never been empty. The reflections held the souls of those who lived there. And now, he was part of it too. Gabriel worked as a night security guard in a commercial building in the city center. The building was old, with imposing architecture, but there was something about it that always bothered him. Elevator number 3. The employees avoided using it. Some said it had a technical problem, Others swore they had heard voices coming from the bottom of the elevator shaft. That night, Gabriel received a call at the lobby. "Help. I'm stuck in elevator number 3. The problem? The shift had already ended. Gabriel picked up his radio and tried to contact someone in the building. Total silence. He took the keys and went to the elevators. The panel indicated that elevator number 3 was on the 17th floor, but no one should be there. He pressed the button. The doors opened slowly, revealing a dark interior with a metallic smell of rust and something else. Something rotten. Gabriel hesitated but got in. The elevator began to descend on its own. The elevator descended past the ground floor, stopping at a floor that didn't exist on the panel. The doors opened onto a long, dimly lit hallway with moldy walls and moisture dripping from the ceiling. At the end of the hallway, a woman with long hair and a hospital gown stood with her back to him. "Miss? Did you call for help?" Gabriel said, trying to remain calm. The woman slowly turned her head. Her eyes were completely white. She opened her mouth, and a deafening scream filled the elevator. The lights flickered, and when Gabriel blinked, the woman was inside the elevator with him. The elevator began to rise uncontrollably. Gabriel pressed the buttons desperately. The lights went out, and for a moment, everything was silent. When the doors opened again, he was no longer in the building. He was inside a room full of broken mirrors, where each reflection showed people trapped, desperately fighting to get out. He tried to run, but felt invisible hands pulling him into one of the mirrors. The next morning, the employees found elevator number 3 stopped on the ground floor. It was empty, and Gabriel was never seen again. Mariana never liked the doll she inherited from her grandmother. It was old, with a lace dress and glass eyes. But what bothered her the most was the fact that every night, a doll would change places. She would always leave it on the shelf in the closet. But in the morning she would sit it in different places, sitting in the armchair, lying on her bed, sometimes at the bedroom door. One night, when I got home from work, I found a note scribbled on her desk. "Don't ignore me." Mariana decided to get rid of the doll. She threw it in the trash on the street and went home relieved. But that morning she woke up to a noise in the hallway. Her heart was racing. She looked at the door, and it was ajar. She got up slowly, took out her cell phone and turned on the flashlight. In the middle of the hallway, the doll was standing up. Mariana tried to ignore it, thinking that someone might have put a doll there as a bad joke. But things got worse. Objects fall by themselves. Doors slammed in the early hours of the morning. And sometimes she heard giggles coming from the closet. Until that night, she felt something touch her face while she was sleeping. She woke up scared and saw the doll sitting on her chest, looking directly at her. Its glass eyes shone in the dark. Mariana fainted. The next morning, Mariana took the doll and went to a distant forest. She dug a hole and buried the damn thing. But when she returned home, the doll was sitting on the couch, with a note on her lap. "I told you not to ignore me." Carlos was driving home from work late at night, driving along a deserted road. The only light came from the car's headlights and the worn-out signs on the side of the road. That's when he saw a man standing on the shoulder of the road, wearing a black suit and a hat. The stranger slowly extended his hand, asking for a ride. Carlos hesitated, but something in the man's eyes made him panic. So he stepped on the accelerator and drove straight past. But a few meters ahead, the man was stopped again. Carlos's heart was beating wildly. How was that possible? He looked in the rearview mirror. The man was no longer there. Suddenly, a whisper sounded from the back seat. "Why didn't you stop?" Carlos braked suddenly and looked back. Nothing. He took a deep breath and tried to calm down. He continued driving as if nothing had happened, but he felt a cold presence beside him. Suddenly, the radio turned on by itself. An old song played in a hissing tone. The radio's display flashed, forming the words, "You can't run away." Looking in the rearview mirror, he saw the man in the suit sitting in the back seat. Carlos screamed and tried to get out of the car, but the doors were locked. "It's too late now," the man said. The next morning, the police found the car overturned on the road. Carlos' body was never found. But witnesses say that at night, a black car appears on the road, and a man in a suit signals drivers to stop. Anyone who stops is never seen again.